Hi, Scott. What I would like to do, I will introduce a little bit myself because you probably don't know me at all. So, I started developing Java in 1995, and it was still Oak. And then since 1997, I'm a freelancer. And I attended the first Java one in year 2000 and attended your keynote. And what I really appreciated, it was a little bit sense of humor. So you always talk stories about ice hockey and, the side stories, not only focusing on technology. And I was actually curious who you actually are, and I wanted to ask you some questions. And the first question is, how Sun Microsystems started. So it was like a spontaneous idea, or you met someone, or what is the story behind Sun Microsystems?
Thank you, Adam. There's a pretty simple and accidental story for how it all got started. When I went to business school, I met and became good friends with Vinod Khosla, and I went off to go make tanks and armored personnel carriers. Vinod went off and did a CAD startup. Eventually, we reconnected back out in California, and he had left Daisy Systems, which was an early CAD company, and was looking to start a new company. And he met Andreas von Bechtelsheim, who was also known as Andy, was at Stanford building the Stanford University network, hence Sun Workstation. And he was licensing the technology out to any company that wanted it, but they couldn't manufacture it in volume. So Vinod said, let's go start our company. We'll make these things. And Andy said, well, who will build them? And he said, well, Scott's in the computer industry now, building computers. Down the street, I was at Onyx Systems, which was the first company to put Unix on a microprocessor. So the three of us got started, and we found Bill Joy very shortly, and those became the four founders. I was 27, as were the other three. And I had 3 years business experience, which was more than the other three founders combined. So we were quite inexperienced. Ignorance is bliss. So we were very happy. And we just started working and building workstations, and the orders came flying in. The first year, we incorporated in February 24th, 1982. And by May, we were profitable. In our first fiscal year, July 1st to June 30th, we did $8.5 million in revenue, and then $39 million the next year, then 115 the next year, then 250 the year after that, then 500 million, and then we had $1 billion the next year. So it was a rocket ride from day one.
So it's not very usual for a startup, right?
It's really rare to be making money.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not the right way to go do it, I guess, if you look at Amazon, who went a long time before they made money.
Yeah. My understanding is you are a businessman and the other guys were programmers, hackers, or technical skilled people. So why you are interested in technology?
I remember when I went from making tanks and armored personnel carriers, I went over to this little company called Onyx because of my professor from college was buying these computers and they couldn't make them fast enough. So I went over and I looked at this little, like, 2-high pizza box, and I lifted the cover off, and the CEO showed me what was inside the box. And I said, well, how much do you sell these things for? And he said about $40,000, which is the price of a very high-end luxury car, and I can pick it up. And then I said, well, how much does it cost? What are the parts costs and the assembly costs of this product? And he said, about $8,000. And my eyes got really big. I said, $8,000 to make, and you can sell it for $40,000? I want to be in this business, because I had come from the automobiles business growing up, and I was in the plastics businesses where you had to go to the fourth decimal point in pricing a little piece of plastic, and your margins were terrible. I thought, this is like stealing. So I decided to get into technology.
Okay, but this seems to me like it's a very aggressive, capitalistic, I would say, point of view. But Sun Microsystem was a little bit different. So my opinion about Sun was a bit about sharing and openness. So you change your mind later on, or what's the deal with that?
No, I've always been a raging capitalist, and I'm a very much a small government kind of a guy. But I also believe that um, there's different strategies. I think Larry Ellison is a great capitalist. We were probably good capitalists in more ways than one. We were good in the sense that we made a lot of money for our shareholders. We paid our employees very well, all the rest of it. But we did allow the rest of the world, the industry, our partners, our employees, our customers to share in our efforts. So it was just a different way, but it was very capitalist. We were not about government regulation and government subsidies. I mean, if you look at Elon Musk, he's been very good at using um, subsidies and those sorts of things to advance his business. But we really pretty much tried to stay away from the regulation and the government subsidy piece, and just went out and tried to build product. But we allowed employees to share in stock options. We open sourced probably close to 80% of our R&D budget. And at our peak, we were a top 40 R&D spender worldwide, all industries, pharmaceuticals, aerospace, technology, all the rest of it. And we were truly driving and leading the open source and sharing parade out there. But it was to make money. It was a nice way to be a good global citizen, but at the same time being raging capitalist. Let's not mince words there. Our duty was to our shareholders, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is still remarkable because still, I struggle sometimes with managers to open source something which is actually absolutely irrelevant for the business, and they struggle with the idea to make it open. And
you're on a big issue. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it drove me nuts because I would go into customers and I would say the real reason behind open source, besides the fact that you have mankind engineering it, the quality is better because everybody has inspected the code. The real reason for doing open source is it lowered the barrier to exit massively. And if you look at the barriers to exit on technology, they are very high. Getting off of Windows or Mac is very high. Getting off the mainframe was very high. Getting off of all of these technologies is very, very high. Whereas if you have open source, you have the source code for the off ramp of that technology. Getting off of Oracle or SAP is nearly impossible for these companies. And yet the buyer continues to ignore the barrier to exit. They look at the barrier to entry, the purchase price, and they look at the ongoing cost of operation, the service contract, but they never look at the barrier to exit. They just kick that can down the road. And so companies that can establish dominant positions with proprietary technology make the most money for their shareholders because of that lack of. I mean, can you imagine driving a Ford and not being able to move to a BMW because the barrier to exit is like moving from Windows to Mac?
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So it's just that's why open source is so powerful. You got Oracle bought us, and Larry kind of missed the sharing class in college. So we work that technology. There's no real big leader in the open source parade. Perhaps IBM and Jenny Rometty, the CEO, with their acquisition of RedHat, will now try to assume the leadership position in front of the open source parade. But I don't know.
Yeah, but what I said, still remarkable that you did it 20 years ago, and it's still right now is still some friction with it. But you are the only.
We actually did that 35 in 1982 is when we started. We were the first company. Day one in 1982 to put TCP/IP on every computer we shipped, the open source networking protocol. And you had SNA, you had DECnet, you had Microsoft's LAN Manager, all of these competing networking schemes. And guess which one won? The open one.
Were you the only businessman around these founders of Sun Microsystems, or because Andy was a technician, I think the Bill Joy was like a true hacker, and then you were the businessman, and there was Vinod, and he was a businessman or a technician?
Um, you know, those three guys are all brilliant,
Hmm.
um, and I was smart.
Okay.
they, they were brilliant. I was smart. And when we invented NFS, well, first of all, we adopted Berkeley Unix, which was the open source version of Unix. So when Bill Joy came to uh, the Sun with the Berkeley Unix expertise, we all sort of understood there was no way this little company was going to compete against IBM unless we had mankind helping us engineer the product. So we understood that. And then the first real test came when uh, Bill Joy walked in with NFS, the network file system, and he said to the staff, my staff, and he says, "All right, now we're going to make this open." And everybody said, "No, you don't want to do that." And Bill, that's the crown jewel. Source code at that time was considered the crown jewels. And Bill said, "What good is a telephone that doesn't connect with other phones?" And we all got it immediately, but the old timers we had hired from the mainframe mini computer world were looking at us like were crazy. But when we launched NFS and it took over and it became an industry standard, all of a sudden everybody in the company understood what we were all about. And that was sort of the last time we had to worry about it. But I don't take credit for that. I think Bill Joy was really the one who drove it. But all three of us immediately of the other founders immediately, understood the power of what we were doing there.
Is it a true story that Bill Joy actually optimized the full TCP/IP stack in a shortest amount of time? So this was like, I read something about that.
Yeah, he's a pretty amazing technical talent. I sort of wish he was still more active. He was so talented and so insightful and forward thinking. Uh, a lot of the stuff that we invented that was 20, 30 years ahead of time. We had Google Glass, back in the old days. We had wearable computing, the Java Ring. I was on the cover of Fortune magazine wearing a Java Ring
I still have
back in
it.
the old days. Yeah, exactly. The Internet of Things was something we started. Genie was auto registry and discovery and registry technology that was way ahead of its time. So many of the things that we did, the network is the computer. We were way ahead of our time on that kind of stuff. So,
Who
you
invented the
know,
slogan, network was the computer?
everybody says they did.
Okay.
There's a whole
Okay.
bunch of people running around. It was one that came up in our staff, a list of a whole bunch of different, and the staff basically all jumped on and said, "We like that one." And away we went and, market. Somebody in marketing was probably the first person to say it, but I don't know who that was. And that poor person got drowned out by all the VPs who wanted to take credit for it. Success has a million inventors, failure has none.
Yes, sure. But the Genie, Java Intelligent Network infrastructure, was really remarkable back then. But I have to say, the marketing was terrible. So I remember I attended a Sun Microsystems conference in Germany, and they tried to market Genie as, I remember, printer driver distribution system or something. And actually, if you think about this, so Genie was like serverless, or could be used as a serverless technology, or function as a service, which is really hot right now, or a service-oriented architecture. So there was it seemed to me like there was a great technology, but there were not that great skills in marketing.
You know, the marketing at Sun, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. We were doing so many things, inventing so many great things. We had so many smart people. We had so much on our plate, and we were, the real key as the CEO is how do we stay focused? How do we, continue? And by the way, we had to price everything a lot more aggressively because we were in the open source world. So margins were a lot thinner. The value to the customer was a lot higher. And, you know, Java might have been one of the greatest marketing efforts ever. Spark and Solaris were huge marketing successes. And there were just lots of other things. It was not clear how we would make money on Genie at the time.
Mhm.
And it just wasn't a clear area of focus. We had lots of other stuff going on. We made more mistakes at Sun than you can count. I mean, I'll give you the earliest mistake we made. Route D ran on Sun OS on our workstations.
Mm-hmm.
And people used our workstations as routers because of Route D.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, the Chinese internet was built on some workstations running Route D, and the telcos were using it. And then some folks here in the valley decided, that workstation doesn't have enough ports and it's got a lot of overhead in it. So they built a very simple little router with lots of ports on it and just re-implemented Route D, and Cisco got started.
Mm-hmm.
So we totally missed the whole Cisco network equipment because we were busy doing all the other things we were doing. Now you can say that was a mistake or it was a smart thing to focus, or who knows. But if you can predict where the technology is going to go over the next 20 years and start working on all of those now, I'll tell you one of the other things that would have been huge is if we had started an open source database effort and bundled it into Sun OS and then Solaris early on. Oracle used to overprice their database on our platform because IBM and Microsoft would bundle their databases for free. So when they competed against them, and they would bundle it for free, but when they were running our platform, they overcharged. And that fundamentally hurt our margins. There were lots of things I would do differently. But in the end, I think all of the 235,000 former Sun employees are pretty proud of what we did get done in the 30 plus years that we were out there.
No, absolutely. You did so many great things. So it's really hard, to have a clear marketing vision or slogan because there are so many different parts going on. As a Java developer, what interests me, there is an old story like a few developers want to quit Sun because they say Sun is no more innovative. And you said, hold on, create a small company, and the name was JavaSoft, and they started to implement Java. Is it true? Is it somehow true or completely wrong?
That's partly correct. So when we were always looking for new people, Bill Joy was in a staff meeting and he mentioned James Gosling. I said, who's James Gosling? And he said, oh, he's over at Carnegie Mellon. He's the greatest programmer alive. And I thought Bill Joy was the greatest programmer alive. So when the greatest programmer I knew was saying this is the greatest programmer alive, I said, let's hire him. He said, no, he's not going to come over. He's very happy over there. You won't get him. I said, Bill, give me his phone number. And we called him right there and we talked him into coming out and visiting. And he joined Sun and he was doing really great stuff. He and Bill Joy were good friends and had huge mutual respect for each other. And then a few years later, I heard through the grapevine that James was thinking of quitting the company. So I called James up. I said, come over to my office right now. So he came over and sat down looking a little sheepish. And I said, James, I hear you were thinking of leaving the company. He said, yeah, I've pretty much decided I want to go work on some consumer grade stuff that will ship in hundreds of millions. I've been working in enterprise technology for so long, and I've got this idea. And I want to go out and do it. I go, all right, I will fund it. You tell me what you need, how much money, where, who you want to hire, what facilities you need. I will fund the entire thing. No questions asked. You can put up a pirate's flag. You can call it whatever you want. And you call it green to start with. That was the original name. And oak was the original product that he built. I said, the only rule is that you need to, in 2 weeks, come back and give me your little business plan. It doesn't have to be very formal. Just tell me how much money you're going to spend. And then I want you to come see me once a year and give me a progress report. And you can go do whatever you want to go do. And he smiled and looked at me and said, really? I said, yeah, get out of here. So he laughed, he got up and walked away and came back with a little business plan to build a multi-purpose clicker for TV, because in that day and age you had 7 clickers in front of your home entertainment environment. He wanted to combine those all into one. And as he got into it, he said, "Oh my gosh, I need an object-oriented, no pointers, virus-proof, simple, intelligent programming environment." So he invented Java as a means to build the product he wanted to build. He eventually built the clicker, but all of a sudden we ran into Mark Andreessen and crew over at Netscape, and the browser was just Netscape browser was just taking off, so we married the two, and the interactive internet was born.
Yeah, and birth of JavaScript as well, right? Because I think the deal was they can use Java, but they wanted to rename LiveScript to JavaScript, right?
I believe that's accurate. So yes, but JavaScript was done by Netscape.
Okay, exactly. And so JavaSoft was started, but then was folded in back to Sun, or was it? How long was it independent?
Well, nothing's ever independent under Sun. We were a loosely coupled, highly aligned constellation of business units and functions and that sort of thing. At one time, I created a planetary thing where we had JavaSoft, SunSoft, Sun Microelectronics, Computer Corporation, Sun Service, and Sun Express. And I found out that became too loosely coupled, and it was very hard to get aligned. So that experiment was a dumb experiment on my part, and I broke it up again a couple of years later. But the Java product line continued on.
As you saw the clicker with Oak or Java on it, you got immediately the potential, or was it accidental success?
I never got potential in anything. All my smart people did. I was just good at identifying who was excited about something and helping them promote it. The clicker, actually, we never sold one.
Yeah.
And the whole idea, we as a team and James as a person quickly understood. I remember Ed Zaner was pretty smart about figuring out, because he did a great job of promoting it when we launched Java. We quickly understood that the underlying Java language and the Java virtual machines were the really valuable technology, not the clicker. And as a result, Java ended up in all the smart cards, all the cell phones, all the desktops, all the servers. And we had 100% of the Mars landing vehicle market, because the Mars landing vehicle actually had Java in it. So it scaled out of this world in a literal sense.
Exactly. And the success come with Netscape, right? With Netscape and applets, I believe. That was where it really took off.
Yeah, Netscape was the great carrier pigeon for making, and that's how we went viral. Mm-hmm. Netscape was one of the first products to ever go viral, and we piggybacked on that. And I think Netscape went more viral because of Java.
Mm-hmm. Were you surprised by the success of Java?
I've been surprised to this day about how much fun and how much success and how much we changed the world. I mean, Twitter is still all written in Java, and my boys are learning the Java programming language and writing code in Java. It's just everything surprises me.
I can tell you, fun. I would say 95% of businesses backends running still on Java, so it is more popular than ever. This is actually.
I remember talking to the U.S. government, and back in the days when security breaches and viruses were a huge problem. I said there should not be one line of code written in the Defense Department, except maybe real time. And we actually did real time in Java too, but everything should be written in Java just for safety and security and defense of the nation. But they moved slowly. Mm-hmm. They were still doing COBOL and other languages that were. They did a lot of Windows stuff, which was quite insecure at the time.
My first Java one I attended was in the year 2000, and I think it was the biggest. So I remember, I think Rich Green or you told at the keynote that officially there are 30,000 attendees, but only 30,000 because of fire restrictions. So there were actually more unofficially. And so it was incredible. Were you nervous on stage, or what was the feeling, speaking to 30,000 developers? And what I also remember, the keynote was so big that you had open all these slots, and someone said this is exactly the same size as tractor pulling events going on. So
that was probably John Gage with that.
John Gage, exactly, John Gage.
Yeah. So when I was early on as a CEO, I used to get nervous before speaking, and after a while, I just said, you're going to be doing a lot of this. Let's just get over being nervous. So I didn't get nervous. And in fact, I like to be mostly unprepared because people don't want to hear you read a speech. They want to hear how you think. So I tended to get up there and, I actually made up a phrase that's one of my most famous. You have no privacy, get over it. While I was speaking, it wasn't in my notes.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's probably my most memorable phrase. And I made it up on stage. So I wasn't nervous in front of large crowds. I got very nervous in front of small crowds.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason being is if nobody wants to come hear you, we must be doing something wrong. So
Mm-hmm.
the fact that there were 30,000 people out there just told me, hey, we're on to something. And I would get excited, but not nervous.
So what's also interesting, in the year 2000, I was lucky because there was also Steve Jobs, I remember, attended the keynote as well, right, with you?
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
So
And
I did a
why
lot of speeches.
why I remember that? Because Java was told to be, or Apple was told to be the best workstation for Java or something. And I came back to Germany and said, hey, now we have to buy Mac because I really have to develop more Java. And have still a recording somewhere. And I hope you remember something, but if not, I thought that there was some.
Sending the recording, I do remember that he was doing Objective-C, not Java, as his primary, and he wanted something that was proprietary and more closed. And he's the most brilliant consumer technology. I put him and Andy kind of on pedestals. Steve Jobs made technology cool. He was a fashion designer of technology. He was the Calvin Klein of that's not doing him total justice, but he made it fashionable and cool and pretty and all the rest of it. Andy was the industrial Steve Jobs. He, more email packets, networking, whatever has gone through Andy design technology than probably all the other designers combined.
Mm-hmm.
So, these two guys were the big leaders, but Andy was much more open interface, open protocols, because he was more on the networking side of things. Steve was very proprietary, and Apple has been a very proprietary and successful company.
Mm-hmm. Now, why Sun was special? So I follow you on Twitter, and you're still posting, old posters from Sun Microsystems and some celebration parties or whatever. So it seems like you still remember in Sun in a good light. So why Sun was special? So it can be another Sun right now. Is it possible to start a company which will behave like Sun behaved back then?
I don't know. It was just fun. We made it fun, kick butt, have fun. There's 235,000 former Sun employees out there in the world. Hundreds of former Sun people are CEOs or have been CEOs. Eric Schmidt, Carol Bartz, Satya at Microsoft, Bill Coleman at BEA. Lots of people. I mean, it's just the old timers remember it. And I think I've taken a lot of the culture and the style and the attitudes that we had at Sun and carried it forward. That's exciting. It's just people had a really, really good time. And it was a simpler world.
Mm-hmm.
There was less division. There's so much division out there in the world today. There was less government intervention. You could have fun without. I mean, unfortunately, I think all fun offends somebody somewhere, and offense is something you have to avoid at all costs these days. So it was just a better and more fun time, and it was really exciting that there were cell phones with cameras everywhere recording everything that he did, and so I think we all miss good old days sometimes.
Yeah. And you mentioned already John Gage. I also really appreciated his presence on keynotes. It was like really insightful. I remember once he said, I don't know, that the broadband connections in California are going to be built out and therefore good times for Java. So he's always like complete different point of view. So what was actually his role at Java 1 keynotes in relation to Java? So who is John Gage?
John was our ambassador at large,
Mm-hmm.
and his title was Chief Science Officer, which he made up and self-assigned, which was fine. And I used to, with a twinkle in my eye, accuse him of being the Chief Science Fiction Officer, but he was great at articulating the persona that we wanted to have, which was open, big thinking. He was a brilliant guy, and knew how to promote in a way that inspired people. So he was a very inspiring character. He was the perfect MC for Java 1.
Exactly. And I think in the year 2010, you came up on stage and introduced Kuriki. And this made me really curious because it was like out of nothing. So who got the idea, and was it you, or why you started this and why you introduced that on Java 1?
So Ken Jones was running our education business at the time, and we were in Europe somewhere and having lunch, and my kids were starting to pay $130 for a third grade math textbook when nothing has changed since Newton got hit on the head with an apple. 10 plus 10 was, is, and will be 20 forever. And I was thinking, why are we open sourcing microprocessors, operating systems, spreadsheets, networking protocols? We spend $8 to $15 billion a year just in the US alone, every year, annually, once a year, on K through 12 education materials. Why don't we create a global community to open source K through 12 education? So we started it. It was called the Global Education Learning Community, and eventually we spun it out of Sun because it was too big of an idea. And we created Kuriki, Curriculum Wiki, Kuriki.org. And the thing has been basically self-funded by me, friends of Scott, and some really wonderful corporations. So we offer all free. It's now, I think, the largest repository of free and open source community, OER, Open Education Resources Technology. We have 270,000 free and open learning assets in this Lego bucket. Just everything you can imagine: Khan videos, science projects, textbooks. We actually have actual curriculum for classes like 8th grade math, 3rd grade social studies, whatever. And we're slowly building out Legoland, which will be a free online internet enabled, multimedia ready, internationalized, localized, self-paced, on-demand, real-time scored, certified K through 12 education experience that is free.
And is it successful?
What's that?
Is it successful?
It's, I think, one of the most successful startups per penny invested. We have 3.5 employees. We have over 200 million students who are touched by this. We have, I think, 12 million active registered users, thousands of groups of teachers and parents and students who get together and use this. And if you look at the growth rate, the time on site, the hits, all the rest of it, it's a wildly successful .com startup. And people say, why don't you turn it into a .com? And I'd say, because I want it to be free. It turns out there's a lot of education startups that are .coms that that become shipwrecks because schools and teachers and parents and students don't have money to pay for education, so it all gets sucked up into the government school systems. So, our goal is to ultimately provide this answer, and there's a lot of people who are very excited about helping us create a free online self-paced experience. The real key is real-time scoring. It's called gamification. Real-time feedback on whether you got it wrong, right or wrong, and leaderboards. And we're going to be building that into the whole system, as opposed to the current process where you don't really find out a few days after how you did on the test.
Mm-hmm. So So you are still involved because you are saying we. So you're still involved in Kuriki?
Oh, absolutely. I spend a ton of my time as chairman of weighin.com, and I spend a ton of time as a board member and co-founder of Kuriki.org. And anybody out there, please go to curiki.org and donate, please. This is a great cause. I know it's the most expensive thing I've ever done in my life, personally, but it's very rewarding.
It is, but it is not very capitalistic point of view, right?
You know, I believe in corporate private sector capitalism,
Okay.
but private charity. And for the most part, I do all of my charity anonymously. And I don't believe corporations should be doing charity. They should be returning money to the shareholders who do charity.
Oh, perfect. This is a separation of concerns, what we say in software
development. There's been a huge conflict of interest. And by the way, most shareholders have different views on where they would like to be charitable. So since they're the ones that put the money up to create the value, they're the ones that should decide where the charitable contributions go. And I would rather have private sector charity than government sector charity. And that's always a big third rail topic, but I'm happy to have an intelligent and calm conversation with people about that topic because I just believe that the private sector is far more accountable than the public sector is.
In one point of time, I think around 2010, Jonathan Schwartz became, I think, CEO or CTO, and you became the chairman, right?
Right, about 5 years before Oracle bought us, my boys were 2, 4, 6, and 8, and I told the board, listen, I've been doing this for over 20 years. It's time for me to step back, let somebody else run it, and I want to be there while my boys are growing up.
And so you
Jonathan
are still
became the CEO.
But you are still one of the. There was the longer period in the history of Silicon Valley or something, right? 20 years. There's no other example of someone. Being...
Larry Ellison was there for that long or more. There's others, but it was. I don't know. I probably could have stayed longer if I'd had a staff for cats like Larry Ellison does and had delegated more. But I always had to work harder than anybody else in the company. And so the day I decided I didn't want to work harder than anybody else in the company, I thought that's probably time for me to step aside.
Okay. So that was your idea to become a chairman?
Yes.
And my impression was, as a chairman, so you still attended the keynotes, but you had a lot more fun. So I remember you had a slide deck with what you can do as a chairman better than before, 10 points, and they were really, really funny. You remember the presentation?
I remember the top 10 list, but I don't remember the exact item. But it was definitely less stressful and all the rest of it. Although it was also a little stressful to watch your company go a direction that maybe you wouldn't take it in if you were there. Mm-hmm. But you sort of have to let it go. It's sort of like when my boys go off to college, I sort of have to step away from the child and let them grow and make their own mistakes.
Yeah. And what is actually a job of a chairman? So you had to, I don't know, is it an advisory job or what were your tasks at Sun Microsystems back then?
Well, I was a board member, and so I had normal board tasks. But as chairman and co-founder of Sun, my job was basically to go out and relieve Jonathan of having to go visit every one of our customers.
Okay.
So I just traveled a lot. I was gone 4 days out of 5. But I was home for the weekends, to be with the boys. So.
Mm-hmm. And you know Larry Ellison personally, or?
I do. He's a good friend.
Okay. This was my impression because what I remember is the Sun Oracle keynote where Oracle took over Sun. And there was actually somehow interesting situation where Jonathan Schwartz announced the acquisition. And then Larry said, okay, I would like to talk with Scott. And then you came out and you built something for Larry. I remember something with a yacht, also like a flag or something. This has something to do with the ocean, like signal flags or whatever. And he just said, okay, I don't care. I just would like to everything being Java at Oracle back then. We would like to port everything to Java. So this is what I really remember. So it seemed to me like you and Larry were good friends.
Yeah, we've been good buddies. I remember the first time we met him was on an airplane, and we actually sat down in seats next to each other. This was back in the early '80s, and we started talking, and we were already working together. He gave me a new Gillette shaver that had two blades on it. He said, "You got to try this. It's really good. It really works." It's funny he would do that, given that he always has a beard. But I thought it was funny that here's the CEO of Oracle giving me a free razor on the airplane.
That's really cool.
It worked.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was, completely offline, right?
Absolutely.
What, the conversation started behind the scenes, or how it works? So it's like Oracle calls you, or it happens more formally. So how such an acquisition works behind the scenes? So it's like informal, everything starts with informal discussion, or is very formal from the beginning?
Well, I believe the conversation started with Jonathan and IBM talking, and IBM put an offer on the table. It wasn't very attractive in some ways, so I called Larry Ellison and I said, "Hey, would you be interested in putting a bid on the table?" He very quickly, within a week, put a bid on the table that was in every way better than the IBM offer per our legal counsel, and so the board voted on that and took it to the shareholders, and it was accepted. So a very capitalist thing.
Yeah, very pragmatic, I would say. 1 week, it's a great story. I would expect, months of discussions and meetings and stuff like that. Okay.
It's not like Oracle didn't and IBM didn't know everything about us. They did.
Okay. And was it a Gillette shaver included? No, I guess.
No. In fact, I lasted 2 days at Oracle, which I think was a paperwork mess up. So Larry got me out of there in a hurry.
Okay. And what is weigh-in? So I think not immediately, my impression was immediately you started with weigh-in, and I tried to find out what it is. It seems to me a little bit like Twitter, I would say, and with social background, social media. What was your idea? Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit, we've pivoted a little bit since we got it started, but I just couldn't sit around and do nothing. So I've been doing a lot of advisory work, and I advise probably 30 different companies. I just advise for stock options. I'm an advisor to the CEO. I'm not an employee. I don't get health care. I don't get cash. And I found out that, free advisory work had infinite demand. So I suggested to people the only way I can prioritize my time. And right now I have 3,916 emails on my stack of work that I should be working on. Instead of doing an interview, but this is fun. And so I just tell people I'll prioritize based on the value and the amount of stock options that I'm getting. And, it doesn't mean I'm advise you. It's easier to figure out using economics to prioritize my time. But one company I did put some money in, to help raise money for was Wayne. And having grown up in marketing, as my father was group vice president of North American marketing and vice chairman eventually of American Motors in the auto industry, I've been watching the TV and print and other advertising worlds for a long period of time, and it's so frustrating to not know if anybody read the magazine ad. You can't do A/B testing, billboards. Nobody knows who's watching the TV, and nobody really knows what they follow. And ad agencies are always telling everybody, "Hey, the product did well because of our ad, and the product did poorly because it sucked." And you can never really have accountability of matching buyers and sellers. Digital ads came along, and it was supposed to be a big change, but they're really basically the same little 30-second movies repurposed onto your cell phone or your PC. And all of this targeting that all the big analytics was doing didn't change anything. AT&T ran the first digital ad back in the 90s, and it had a 43% click-through rate. the click-through rate now on Facebook or Google digital ads with all of this analytics and targeting is less than 1%, and more than half of those click-throughs are accidental. So we need to change the internet. We need to Uber the advertising paradigm, and that's what Wayne is trying to do. So what we've done is said people are now watching and engaging with the brands with a keyboard, a touch screen, a camera, and a microphone in their hands. Why not allow them to talk directly, one-to-one, back to the brands, to the consumer companies, to the customers, um, suppliers. So we have built, if you will, an iTunes store of 75 prefab reference architecture engagement campaigns. Things like sweepstakes, product configurators, quizzes, brackets, advent calendars, those sorts of things that you can pull down out of the store, configure very quickly without IT needing to be involved, without a lot of creative, and you can launch those on your channel anywhere you want, and then re-shelve them and save them for next year when the Super Bowl comes around or when Christmas comes around or whatever. And you can share them with other divisions inside the company. So we signed with Coca-Cola, they have 500 products in 200 countries. That's a lot of advent calendars to go do. Or instead, they can share one across all of those geographies. And it's a huge money saver. And the most important part of it is the customer gets zero-party data back. We've seen what happened with Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. Third-party data is a big issue with the GDPR stuff. Zero-party data is opt-in, consented data that is offered in return for value, like a sweepstakes to win something, to get a discount or whatever. And instead of Facebook and Google getting the first party data, now the brands can get the first party data directly. Coca-Cola gets the data, not Facebook or Amazon or Google. So anyhow, that's a quick overview of what we're doing. It's pretty exciting, pretty fun, and all of the big brands are very, very excited about it.
Okay, so for me as a programmer, so what you describe right now is more like peer-to-peer, honest and transparent advertising, right? Something like this?
Exactly. And in fact, the latest thing that we just offered are micro experiences where you can have these interactive experiences embedded in your ad units. So the ad units show up on Snapchat or Twitter or whatever. You can actually capture first-party data from Snapchat or whatever. So that's another very powerful way for media buys to actually fill your own data lakes as opposed to Facebook, Google, or Amazon's data lake.
Yeah, so you are using the others as a platform, and the metadata goes back to your application, right?
Yes.
So you are actually a remarkable businessman, because what you also said is around 2006 is that in 5 to 7 years, iPod is not going to be that successful because you could stream music from iPhones. Or iPhones to cellular phones. This is what I read on Wikipedia. Is it somehow true?
Well, I don't know many people who have iPods anymore. And, ultimately everything ends up in the cloud.
Yeah.
And ultimately we want to get thinner and thinner on the clients. And as 5G comes along, I think there'll be a whole bunch of things that'll move more to the cloud.
Yeah.
And all the IoT stuff will move to the cloud and that sort of thing. So I said a long time ago that eventually your wallet will go away. And right now I carry my cell phone with me, and it has two cards in there. It has a credit card, and it has my ID, my driver's license. Mm-hmm. So I don't carry a wallet anymore, and it truly has happened that the wallet has gone by the wayside.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I just wanted to say that is actually you are somehow interested in the technology, so you can foresee the future a bit. which is harder for us programmers because we are really excited. I would say I was really excited about the iPod 10 years ago. And you say, okay, now it's iPod, but in 10 years, forget about that. And this is probably what also made Sun successful.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I was the visionary, but I was a good listener, and I would listen to the visionaries, and I was pretty good at picking out things that I thought would be achievable. Although I missed a lot too myself, and sometimes we called it right, but we were too early, or sometimes we called it right but didn't execute. But that's the beauty of capitalism; it all eventually happens.
Mm-hmm. And Wayne, are you using still Java on Wayne?
I believe so. I
expected 100% Java. The answer,
I'm sure there's Java in there, but I don't really get into the technical. I'm a golf major, not an engineer. So
perfect. So thank you a lot for the interview. Where people can find you, or where you can find your endeavors, or what you focus right now. So
follow me on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's at Scott McNeely, and then you can get me on my email address at scott.mcneely@wayin.com, WAYIN.com.
Mm-hmm. Big thanks. Thank you very much for the interview.
Oh, thanks you for trying to take care. Bye-bye.